Hello, people. Welcome to Conservatism is Dead, Communism Will Take Over the World. Today, we're going to be talking about Canada. Now, Canada is well known um, for being north of the US, but also for having an interesting political landscape, especially now. There's really nothing else of relevance for this country. So, looking at this, you might think that, oh, okay, um, you know, it was going to be a tough election for the Conservatives. They're set to do pretty poorly. They had the lead at the very start of the campaign, but they ended up blundering it. This election wasn't that competitive. The Conservatives were always set to lose this, and quite the thumping. 196 to 120 is pretty insane, judging by the fact that, if I'm not mistaken, the Conservatives actually have more seats than this now, and the Liberals have 160 seats. Actually, the way that the Canadian Parliament stands as of now is this. Um, there's two seats that currently have no incumbent because the Liberal MPs resigned or died or whatever. The seats are vacant, and they're not going to call a special election this soon. The election is the 28th, which would be from the time this video is being posted, 16 days, nearly two, or near very slightly more than 2 weeks. So there's no use in having a by-election, since it would have to be either scheduled concurrently with the election, which is really dumb, or after the election, which, to the best of my knowledge, Canada really doesn't have a lame duck period. New parliament is sworn in pretty much as fast as possible, so that would be like, in the new parliament, they have a by-election for seat that already has an incumbent to fill a term that was from the last parliament. Wacky stuff in Canada, but those seats are currently open, but the Conservatives are actually standing at 121. Um, they actually had the last election. They have flipped two seats in by-elections. The Bloc Québécois has also flipped one seat in a by-election, and the NDP has done nothing, like usual. But for the most part, Conservatives probably end up losing seats. The problem is that the momentum is not trending in their way whatsoever. You know, at the start of the campaign, it looked like the Liberals had the momentum, but then you could see some signs of a dip here. Well, it didn't really come fast enough because, this is barely a dip, but the polls fluctuated here. But they've continued fluctuating. You really haven't seen the Liberals go down in any meaningful way. So you'd think, the Liberals had this election in the bag. Let me click this. Oh, oh no. The Liberals were at 35 seats. And now they're going to get a supermajority. Or not a supermajority as in like the logical sense, like a super majority, like a superhero is a great hero. Supermajority in this sense is a great majority. I'm trying to make it look like I'm not a dumbass, but Liberals have really turned this election around. It's when it happened when Trudeau resigned. Here, Conservatives were winning solely because Trudeau was completely loathed by the Canadian electorate. Like, Trudeau was one, he'd been prime minister for 10 years straight, which is a big no-no. People don't like re-electing their prime ministers a bunch, but he was completely unlikable. In a way, he ran the country into the ground. He was completely loathed by the general electorate. And, well, as this has proven, Conservatives really didn't run a good campaign back here. These supermajorities were not because they were reaching out to new voters. It was because, one, Trudeau was completely hated, and two, because of that, Conservatives, I mean, you can look at the popular vote projections. They were able to get 45% of some polls, but for the most part, the reason why the ridings were so unbalanced from was the Bloc, the NDP, and the Liberal Party were kind of competing for the same voters. Not to say that, every party but the CPC is a Liberal Party, because the Bloc, the NDP, even the Greens aren't the same as the Liberals. I'm not stupid enough to say that, but what happened here was a lot of voters who have now flipped back to the Liberals were extremely disaffected with Trudeau. And, some of them went to the Conservatives, obviously the main opposition. A lot of them went to the Bloc, especially in Quebec. Um, It's part of the reason why you had this by-election in Montreal flip to the bloc, which was shocking. Obviously, everyone knows the next by-election we'll talk about in Toronto, but like this one was equally shocking that the bloc won a seat in Montreal. Besides for this seat, like this is not bloc friendly territory. Of course, they won it with like a 27% plurality. It was going to be very hard to hold it anyways, but that's part of the reason why the Liberals were doing so bad. You have the Bloc eating up almost all their seats in Quebec. As you can see now, they're getting 48 seats in Quebec, losing a massive amount of that to the Bloc, even the NDP. Remember, this one, Papineau, is Trudeau's now former seat. If I'm not mistaken, he's not seeking re-election, but that seat was pretty competitive between the Liberals and the NDP, and I thought that there's a good chance it would flip if Trudeau's personal unpopularity sunk him in his riding. There was also some projections that showed like some of these seats in the South narrowing up, even flipping to the Conservatives in a best case scenario. So that really ate away at their support in Montreal. You know, the Bloc was taking a bunch of their seats, especially all their seats outside Montreal. Like these seats, it'd be laughable to say that they'd hold any of those. Um, and then when they started, after LaSalle Verdun, the by-election there, it really started to seem like the Bloc would start taking a bunch of these seats on the outskirts of Montreal. You also had at the same time Toronto, which now you can see Ontario is very important. 81-37 lead for the Liberals. That's insane. And if I'm not mistaken, that 44 seats, I mean, it's not their entire seat count lead. Like, you have to take out Quebec and Ontario for the Conservatives to lead with the rest of Canada, which, by the way, that's an insane thought that you axe the two massive provinces in Canada. You just delete Ontario and Quebec, the two biggest Liberal vote getters, and they're still winning the rest of Canada. Like, I don't even think that was the case in 2021. That was Aaron O'Toole, one of the worst candidates the Conservatives. I mean, one of the average candidates the Conservatives have nominated for office. So completely atrocious. At the same time as that, you saw the NDP getting pretty close to the Liberals in seat count and popular vote. You saw a lot of these ridings, and especially, first of all, the suburbs, the Liberals were getting blown out of the water. Um, None of these suburbs, and like some of them are urban, but none of these seats on the outskirts of Toronto were going to Liberals. Ever had a chance of going to Liberals with Trudeau's leader. And you started to see Conservatives break into Central Toronto. Obviously, you have the Toronto St. Paul by-election. This was a pretty safe Liberal seat. And Conservatives ran a good campaign. Plus, Trudeau was completely hated, so they ended up flipping it. Which is their first seat in Toronto in 10 years, and they flip it in a by-election. Like the Bloc Québécois incumbent in LaSalle Verdun, this guy is dead on arrival. Bye-bye. Pack it up. Like, he's going to lose by 20-something points. You had to go in. Like, him running in that by-election, you had to know, like, if things get worse, there's no chance I'm winning re-election. Because even when it was looking horrible for Liberals, actually, I can actually pull up the map here. But even when things were looking completely atrocious for the Liberals, like this seat was still there was a question. Obviously, he was up by 10, which is pretty big. Part of this was like here, I think, was the by-election, and they were like, "Oh, the Liberals are going to win this seat by 4." Oh wait, no, the Conservatives are leading. But even he was favored to lose re-election at one point. It was close, and like especially when Trudeau resigned, he was not winning re-election. And even you see that presence of the NDP there. Conservatives never once polled to get a majority in the seat, even when they won in a by-election with and they have an incumbent running for re-election. Like here, the best part for the Conservatives, if the NDP went down to where they are now, which is 4%, even if conservative like this is like you get a supermajority with independents, every swing voter goes to you. you still lose the seat, and that's what ended up happening. The NDP, they're not the same party. I'm not trying to imply that, but I'm trying to say that when Trudeau was prime minister, not really because the NDP was a competent party, but they presented themselves as a viable alternative to Trudeau, and they were a viable alternative to Trudeau. Like, no one's going to vote for the Greens, Lamau. The Bloc is really only taking from the Liberals in Quebec. So if you're a voter who hates the Conservative Party, but also hates Trudeau, your choices are hate yourself when you vote for the Conservatives, don't vote for the Liberals and hate yourself, or vote for the NDP. We're like, I mean, they're a more liberal party than the Conservatives, which is really what matters, especially among younger voters. The NDP took a lot from Liberals, and the NDP has completely floundered, especially since, you know, the fundamental issue with this election, and the reason Conservatives have blundered it, is because Pierre Poilievre is hated. He is not a charismatic, he's not a popular politician. His complete disfavorability was masked by this. Because Trudeau was the main focus of this election. Trudeau was hated. He had all the change, like, oh, yes, we need to change from 10 years of Liberal control. But by 2025, when Mark Carney became leader, Mark Carney is this new face, this popular politician who's leading Canada through crisis. Who cares if he's a bumbling idiot? He's better than Pierre Poilievre, who just presents himself as someone who wants power, someone who thinks he's better than everyone, someone who has no charisma whatsoever. And emotion is big in these. Also, at the same time, the Liberal Party has positioned itself well. The conservative policies, like, I don't know, the carbon tax, all the rhetoric that conservatives have used against Trudeau for the last 2 years since Poilievre was elected was completely dismantled by Carney. Like the carbon tax, they kept attacking him for the carbon tax, and it was wildly unpopular. And had Carney stuck to it, had he made this campaign about defending the carbon tax from the radical conservatives, he probably would be losing. But what did he do? He cut it immediately. Or if you want to be charitable with the conservatives, so he put it on pause, but he's going to bring it back after the election. I don't know if I believe that. Um, but what Carney has done in this election, why it's starting to look like it's completely unwinnable for the conservatives, is if this is about popularity, if you have two options, what is red, what is blue, wow, but the red one is really likable and everyone loves the red one, and the blue one is completely hateable, they're going to vote for the red one. And I purposely didn't say the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party, because even with those words, you have some sentiment attached to them. At this point, the Liberals have just presented themselves as the exact same as the Conservatives on the issues that Conservatives went on. The carbon tax, the Liberals are the same. We cut the carbon tax. Honestly, I don't even know what else the Conservatives run on. I mean, immigration, you could say that, but even there's an argument to be made that the Conservatives are more open to immigration than the Liberals. Like, why is why are we even contemplating that? But at this point, Mark Carney is beloved. He's their funny dumb boy. He says stuff. He just gaffes all the time, makes himself look like an idiot. But he's been doing that since he became the prime minister in March for a month straight of the campaign. And the campaign wasn't called for 2 weeks. We knew what was happening here. I mean, once Trudeau resigned, like a few days afterward, we knew Mark Carney was going to be leader. So basically, for 2 months, Canada has heard Mark Carney gaff again and again, which is really the only thing that the Conservatives can use against him. Because, like, policy, the Conservatives are never going to use the policy that would win them elections, like immigration, like nationalism. They're not going to use that because they're cucks. Uh, They they don't care about winning. Or they want to win, but that's too far. Defending the values of their country is way too far. So, what do they run on? Oh, we have a very unlikable leader. Like, we need to go back to Aaron O'Toole. They have nothing to run on. And what's happened here is you just completely floundered because the Conservatives, they had some semblance of momentum here. Even after Trudeau resigned, like Liberals went up, but also same looking with the Conservatives. Like, they won. And then they just had nothing to do. They had no idea what the hell they were going to do after that. Like, they got rid of Trudeau. What's next? And the Liberals pulled off one of the biggest comebacks in political history. This is insane. Like, they went from 20% to 45%. That's where the Conservatives were. Like, that's insane. And they got there because they ran a phenomenal campaign. And yes, there's 16 days left of this campaign. There's a debate coming up. The debate is where the Conservatives perhaps could change something. If, I don't know, Mark Carney does the Hitler salute. And then endorses Pierre Poilievre on the debate stage. I mean, maybe, but at some point, what is happening in this election is Canadians are forgiving Mark Carney for his gaffes because they love they. I don't even want to say like him personally because they love him personally. He's a likable, honest guy, so they forgive him for his dumb gaffes and idiocy. And they just hate Poilievre because Poilievre is like the most transparently egotistical politician to ever be nominated for a major office. And the only reason he was doing good was because he was riding the wave of anti-Trudeau sentiment. Actually, here, um, when it became apparent that Poilievre would be the Conservative Party Canada leader, the Liberals took the lead back. Like, to put in perspective how insane this is, the Conservatives won the popular vote in 2021. So when Poilievre became the Conservative leader, he was going to do worse than Aaron O'Toole. What? And that's exactly what's happened here. Like, we really should have seen, because what happened here, Poilievre, it seemed like he did good, but what happened was Trudeau just got unpopular, and that's what drove the Conservative lead here. Like, the funny thing is, like, they weren't even favored to win. Like, they weren't even anywhere close to a majority, but like, they were barely favored to win here. Like, oh yes, their best polling days, like 5 point leads. Oh yes, they get 150 seats. And then what happened is just suddenly they surged, and this momentum was always artificial. And you definitely can see the Conservative surge after the election. I really don't think this Mark Carney popularity holds for that long. Like, it seems pretty unstable. I think Mark Carney can hold on for this election, but after that, do we expect them to be perhaps pulling behind the Conservatives? And I do think, unlike some people, I do think the Conservatives can definitely win the next election. But at this point, there's really no way that they can hope for another election for anywhere for 4 years if they don't keep the Liberals below a majority. And like, at this point, 338, I don't know if I trust 338, but the odds of Liberals not getting a majority are 11%. 89% chance the Liberals get a majority because they're just that far above it. Like, there are 196 seats. They have to go down. Like, not even momentum, perhaps. Conservatives could regain some momentum. Like, oh my God, they got 140 seats. The Liberals got 160 seats. Wow, they only lost by 20. Great. But, like, they don't have the time for the momentum. If this election were in May 28th, perhaps we could talk about it, because eventually, perhaps, I don't think it lasts 4 years, but I think this approval for Mark Carney is paper thin. It's just, you don't have a competent party that can break that approval for him. And perhaps no one could have broken that approval for him. Perhaps only time can wither away his approval. Perhaps with time, his approval will wither and die. I don't know. Minecraft movie. Chicken Jockey. I was recommended to do a Minecraft movie video for today. I hope this is passable. But it's over. Like, this election is not going to be too competitive. Um, I'm fairly confident saying that. Even some other projections. This projection, I will say, is a little bit NDP favorable. Like, here, they have the NDP at 8 seats. This projection has them at 17. Well, that's slightly better. But even here, it's still Liberal plus 4 in the popular vote, and like the The boundaries is if the Liberals win the popular vote by more than two, they probably get a majority. If the Conservatives win the popular vote by two, they probably prevent, or if the Liberals lose the popular vote by less than two, or win it by less than two, they get a minority. If the Conservatives win the popular vote by 2 to 5 to 6%, 2 to 6%, they get a minority. If they win it by 6% or more, they get a majority. The Conservatives, they want a majority because if they get a minority, no one else in the Canadian Parliament likes them. The NDP, the Greens, and the Bloc are not going to ally with them. They were going to ally with, or maybe not the Greens, but the Bloc and NDP were going to ally with them against Trudeau because all of them were going to benefit from Trudeau's government being toppled in a vote of no confidence. But no one likes Poilievre. That's the linchpin of this election. If you take one thing away from this video, no one likes Poilievre. So, I mean, what you're going to see is you're going to see Liberals get a majority, and that's insane to me. That like somehow the Liberals have pulled this back. I'm not even mad. Like throughout this campaign, I myself have become very disillusioned with Poilievre, and I understand why Canadians are voting for Liberals. I still would say, I mean, I can't even throw my support behind the Conservatives. Like they're just completely incompetent and cannot govern. Like if Poilievre can't win this election, like he's a complete idiot. Why would you want a complete idiot to govern? So that's why. I mean, I guess I support the Conservatives, but like this has been the biggest fumble of history, and I think I'll leave you off with one note. So we had a by-election, actually less than a year ago, in one riding, um, Cloverdale, Langley City. So what happened is the Liberal incumbent, who was elected in 2021 by defeating an incumbent, decided to retire, um, or actually not retire, resign to run in provincial parliament as an NDP member in, in a safe conservative seat. So he gave up his seat to just lose. He didn't even wait until after the provincial election, which was, by the way, October 2024. So he could have been like, okay, I'll take a breather. I lost this election. Why don't I run for re-election? But he resigned right at the very tail end of the anti-Trudeau fervor, which ended with Trudeau losing here, like very close to Christmas. So what happened was the Conservatives were favored to win a seat, but then the Conservatives won the by-election by 50%, like 66 to 16%. Um, somehow, like I just find that hilarious. This map is actually wrong. Let me reload. But they won that by-election by a lot because the former incumbent MP decided to run again. She had a lot of local ties. She's now polling to lose her seat by 4%. The Conservatives have gone from winning these seats by 50%, with 66% of the vote. Like, there is nothing, there's very few seats that are more safe than a seat you win with 66%, and now they're going to lose it. And and that's our friend who resigned from this seat is now the candidate for this seat. He'll be back in Parliament. Woohoo! What happened? I know what happened. The Conservatives are idiots, completely incompetent, unserious party. But still, that's hilarious. Now we can only hope that the Greens lose, though. They might be picking up a new seat. Woo! Woohoo! Oh, actually, wait. I think they went down. Wait, what? They went down. Yay! Yay! That's not. Wait, why is it? Why do they not? Why do these not sound agree? The Greens are gonna lose. Yes, yes. Oh, also the Greens might get wiped out. Because they're pulling ahead by one here, which is actually quite impressive. Means that they should hold that because that's where their leader is. She outperforms the polls a lot. Um, we also got another poll or another seat here, Kitchener Center. Um, they're not doing too hot here. They're doing better, but they could potentially lose this seat. So, ha ha ha, bye bye Greens, total green death. Thank you for watching. Godspeed. Subscribe. We'll be covering this election live. On election day in Canada, which is April 28th. So make sure to stay tuned for that and to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you can see that when it happens. I think I'll make a final video on this, a seat by seat prediction. I did one of those at the start of the campaign, like ballpark, where I had a conservative minority saying that the conservatives would probably surge. Um, Evidently, they didn't. So, egg on my face. I want to redeem that. I'm going to be right this election. I'm going to get 10 seats wrong. Be better than 338 Canada. You're going to be like, Tester's done the electoral Nostradamus of Canada, who lives in New York. But thank you for watching. It's going to be great. I'm going to be right. Godspeed. Tester's done. Out.